I'm going to start. Francois, or maybe just guys, as you are trying to get in and you're struggling to connect your audio, it might be best to turn off your video. That might help with turning off. That might help with connecting to the audio. And I'm thankful we don't have load shedding. I was kind of nipping and yapping about that. But anyway, I quickly just want to share a little bit about Francois' online course that he did. I did it and it took me forever to work through it. But eventually I got to the place where he kind of explained on the percentages you need to kind of trade with. And I had to go to my exchange and I had to change everything in the exchange, kind of sold everything that I had and started all over again, just to kind of get my mind into the I think it was 60, 30, 10% or something, the long-term, short-term and cash options. And what is interesting for me, since I've changed that, I have seen, and now I'm also keeping an eye on what's happening, which is something I haven't done before. And since I started to do that, I kind of saw a small increase in my crypto growth in the past week or two. So that was just something I thought, hey, this is actually fun. I can listen to this guy. So Francois, thanks for that. Yeah. So maybe anybody else who just maybe
it's fun to make money.
Yeah. Anybody else maybe just want to share a little bit with us from what you've learned from before, or people who's maybe asked questions and now you have a better understanding, or yeah. Anybody who's giggling?
It's
Stephanie.
so Greek to me.
That's still Greek to you. Well, then you're at the right place. Then you are at the right place.
Oh, dear.
Okay. Okay. Francois, I think maybe you can start with your house rules and then take it from there. How do you feel?
Now, before we start with the house rules, for those that have started the online courses, specifically the crypto trading and investing, I normally tell people it is like learning a new language and a new set of skills. So if you can't speak French and you have to learn maths, you first have to kind of learn French and then learn maths if I'm teaching you maths in French. And so kind of that's the analogy that sits behind learning how to trade and invest. If you've done it prior, it's a lot easier to get onto the rhythm of everything, but that's more or less what is happening. So that being said, give yourself time and space to get into it. It's going to be fine. You're going to get there. Okay, housekeeping. Let's get into this. So for all of you that are on here, it will be recorded. We will send out the link like last time. Be aware of scammers. This is very important, specifically in the crypto and in the financial space. Just know I will never contact you via WhatsApp, Telegram, or Facebook, or whatever social media platform that is out there. And I will never ask you to send me money or crypto. That's, if you see that happening, that is a dead sure scam. I'm not a cryptocurrency broker, and I do not trade for third parties. We teach people to take responsibility for their own finances. That's the main thing, so that you are in control and the risk is minimized through that. And then this is for your education. It is not financial advice. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. Very important. The things we are going to discuss is there to kind of challenge you to think and see in a new way. And so I'm not going to tell you what to believe. That is between you and Father, Holy Spirit, and Jesus to decide what is necessary for where you are at. We are all in different areas of the world, different areas of our lives. And so that is key. So we are going to cover details of things, of topics, of principles, which already exist, but I'm going to introduce you to them in a new way and try to connect the dots in a way to help you see the various varieties of the economy, the kingdom of heaven, and how it connects to earth. And then cryptocurrencies are not the solution to your money problems. Jesus is. So this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is not how it works. This is not how finances works. That nothing in life works like that. So be aware that even this won't work like that. And so the technology of crypto models the kingdom, and therefore we study its principles, like we said. And this is not a crypto coin discussion. Even in the future, we will discuss the technologies of various cryptos, but we are not going to look at crypto coin discussions. That is what we do in our weekly trading Zoom calls. And so if that is what you're looking for, please join us for a Tuesday Zoom call. And then at the end, like last time, we will have a Q&A. So as we go through this, please guys, this is going to be a meaty one. It's not going to be so entertaining as last time. I'm going to try and keep it as light as possible, but we are digging into the principles of what the Acts community was about, what they did right, what they got wrong. And so as we go through this, write the questions down to see if I maybe answer them as we go through it. And if you don't get it at the end, let's ask those questions. And if you don't have a question now and you look at the recording, please send us a mail or find us on WhatsApp and ask the questions there so that in the future we can address them. So that being said, Marpri, I don't know if you want to do anything else. Otherwise, we can start our meeting.
No, I think let's try to keep the chats in the chat to a minimum. You know, as Francois said, let's just you know, write them down, see if he answers them throughout his little speech, and then if not, we can maybe make some time at the end and just see if there's one or two questions. Otherwise, the WhatsApp group is a great place to ask these questions as well if we don't get it to it tonight. I will afterwards again send out the link for the recording, and also some links to some Facebook pages and the Telegram page. So yeah, if you have questions, that's the place to go. Anyway, Francois, I am just gonna hand it over to you. Enjoy.
Okay, everybody, I would love it if you would just step into Father's presence with me. Father, we ask that this will be swift, that it will be your truths, that it will be your principles, and that it will be good quality ground in which this seed is sown tonight, even in my own life, Father, so that whatever you reveal tonight, Holy Spirit, that it will just bear amazing fruit. Okay, amen. Let's get in. So how do we become a healthy, sustainable Acts community? So this is what we are going to try and answer towards the end. So as we go through, kind of revert back to this question, how are we going to become healthy and sustainable? That is very important. It doesn't mean just healthy and short-lived. It needs to be sustainable. We need to build perpetual. And so we will cover what we are longing, why are we longing to have an Acts community, the dream. Why is everybody always talking about, I wish we had an Acts community. I want to live like the Acts community. We really need to get into there, because if you do not understand why you are longing for this, you might have belief systems which prevent you from going there. What went wrong within the Acts community? Very important. We want to learn from history so that we don't fall in the same trap. How can we fix it? So what is the solution, and how crypto can play its part in this solution? And it's very important because crypto helps us bring a sustainability and a healthy side to this, which was never possible in the past. Right. What about the Acts community makes us want to replicate it? Really let that question sink in. Ask yourself, what is it that you are drawn to within what you've read about the Acts community, what you've heard about the Acts community, what fathers revealed to you? Because it's important to know what is the driving force, what is the energy, what is the question that is pulling you in that direction? Because if we read through Acts, we can ask that question and we can say, is it to be stoned for the sake of promoting Jesus? That's what happened to Stephen. Is it to be put in prison for preaching the gospel? That's what happened to Peter and some of the other disciples. Is it to be punished for not obeying the governing bodies of the time? Like what we said in part 1 of Crypto in the Bible, we discussed that Jesus came and he was a disruptive technology towards the old system. And so every time we bring a new revelation, even into our own bodies, beings, and our soul, it is disrupting. And so if we are going to disrupt, we are going to kind of find ourselves against a force that wants to resist. And so sometimes that force resists us with more force. And so this is what we saw with with the disciples. They were called into the Sanhedrin, and sometimes they were whipped for what they said. Or is it to walk in the glory, the intimacy, the transparency, and the accountability that was within the community that we read about in Acts 2 and Acts 4? Is it to be a part of the signs and wonders, live in a community with like-hearted people, be good to one another? Or is it to sell your goods and sow it into the community so that no one has need? Imagine if you have to sell everything you have so that you can give it to people so that they don't have need. Just let that idea sink in. That was what everything listed on this list here. The good, the bad, the ugly, whatever you perceive in this moment, this is the revelation of the Acts Church, and it kind of disrupts our thinking process, and it challenges our being with, can we actually live this? Am I actually willing to walk this out to the fullness that what is described here? So these are the things we need to wrestle with, and this is what we are going to try and answer tonight. So what insights do the scriptures give us? There's not a lot about the Acts Church community, so we basically just have a short couple of paragraphs which explain this to us, but we are going to use as much of that as what we can to really just dig into what was the principles, what was the culture that manifested the glory, the signs, the wonders that was there, so that if we can anchor ourselves into that revelation, what Father revealed there, we can definitely replicate that, because Father's character and authority never changes, which means his kingdom and his economy to be replicated in this time, in this age, is possible for us as well. Okay, so let's read into what we see here. So the Acts community in Acts 2 from verse 42. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to one another who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their numbers daily those who were being saved. Okay, so what do we see in this paragraph? There is a society, a community, an atmosphere of transparency, accountability, ownership or responsibility, depending on which word tickles your fancy. And all of those create intimacy, trust, and unity. So when we read, they followed the teachings of the apostles. They were breaking bread together. Everybody was filled with this, the whole atmosphere was filled with signs and wonders because of this holiness environment that was created, because there was intimacy, which brought about trust and unity. And that was available because people were transparent, people were accountable, people took responsibility, not for their own needs only, but also for others' needs. And so this is the fundamentals that we are going to look at. The first three, transparency, accountability, and responsibility, or taking ownership, is the pillars which create the fruit, which is intimacy, trust, and unity. And it's like a marriage. It's like a very deep, intimate friendship. If you don't have transparency, accountability, or people taking ownership, intimacy, trust, and unity will never see the light of day. Okay. The believers shared their possessions. So we are in Acts 4 now. And what we read here is exactly that. So see those principles we just discussed about transparency, accountability, see it mimic through this part as well. All the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions were their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and God's grace was so powerful at work in them all that there were no needy persons among them. From time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales and put it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to anyone who had need. Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, who the apostles called Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, sold the field he owned and brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. This surely sounds like a Ponzi scheme, doesn't it? Where you just bring everything and you just throw it in the pot. And whoever gets it, gets it. And if you don't get it, you don't get it. But we need to see the Bible in a complete perspective, a holistic point of view. And that's why it's important to know the scriptures. So when we read this part, we also know that the amount of parables Jesus spoke about good stewardship also plays a part. And if we look closer now, we will see from time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them. So it's those who had assets, those who were good at business, those who've grown their businesses. So from time to time, which means if we look at good stewardship, the parable of the talents with 5, 2, and 1, we realize that they were good businessmen who multiplied what was given to them. And then from there, they sowed it back into the community. And so we need to understand the whole Hebrew or Jewish culture behind it. There will always be a momentum, a healthy community behind the giving part. Otherwise, it is not a sustainable momentum and it becomes a parasitic environment. And that is what a Ponzi scheme is. So this is not that. It is important that we see that we build a healthy economy, a healthy business, and from there, we've got assets to sell, like houses, like land, and so we can then give to the needy. So it's important that we understand that fact. So what are the principles the Acts community basically lived by? So see if you can see where this comes from. See if this sounds familiar. I am the Lord your God. You shall not have any strange gods before me. You shall not adore them nor serve them. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something Father gave to the Israelites when they left Egypt? You can find this in Exodus 20, and it is what we call the 10 Commandments. So at this stage, this is part of the principles which the Acts community lived by. But what does this practically look like? So let's connect this with the rest of the Bible. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money, or mammon. So the root word in the Greek for money is mammon, and the root word for mammon actually comes down to, and it means to be an individual or to walk a life of individuality. So it's being independent. And so God represents unity, and mammon represents being on your own, doing your own thing. And so the first one is, I'm the Lord your God, and you shall have no other gods but me. So it comes down to, we have to choose basically between the source of our supply being Yahweh or the source of our supply being mammon. And so how do we honor Father? Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. And so that is a crazy thing. We honor Father by putting our money where our mouth is. So that is pretty cool. So let's just quickly talk a little bit about honor. What is honor? So honor, the way Father explained it to me, is the opposite of entitlement. So we will read about honor in one of the lower commandments Father gave, but it comes down to, if you want to honor Father, it means it goes back to that scripture that says, where Father hides a matter, and it's for a king to search it out. And so honor is, you humbly come and you, through intimacy, spending time, you search out closely in the intimate parts of Father what he is hiding, so that he can reveal his abundance to you. And by spending that close quarter relationship with him, you actually start seeing the gold, the worth, the essence of who he is. But it also relates to anybody else. And that's what we will talk about in the next step. But if you dishonor, or if you are entitled, it's like an orphan being adopted into a household, but he is not prepared to build relationship, but he wants the fruits of that household. He wants the wealth, he wants the access, he wants the fame. And so an entitled person is an orphan who's not willing to do intimacy or relationship, but just wants the benefit. There's chasing after the fruit. Okay, so our next commandment, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. And so we need to understand that in the origin of the Hebrew name actually translates to character and authority. And anybody that knows, for you to stand in a serious amount of authority, you need character that will sustain that position. If you don't have the character, your position of authority will consume you, will break you, or will corrupt you in a way that is not good for you and society. And so it is two things that go hand in hand. And so how do we honor Father? Through praise and worship and honoring his character and therefore honoring his authority. Remember to keep holy the Sabbath day. So this comes down to rest. We all know this. Now, if a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whichever day you choose, or whichever position you choose to stay in rest, what does that actually mean? How do we honor that thing? By just doing nothing? It is not the way Father's kingdom works. Everything is intimacy or relation based. And so rest equals an opportunity for relationship. So you set time aside, like on a date, like on a Sunday, to spend time with the person you value most, so that you honor that person by getting into close quarters with them. Because anybody that has ever been in business know that when it comes down to gritting your teeth and pulling a project through, it takes a lot of character. And it's normally in partnership with somebody. You rarely do it all by yourself. And so it helps if you are really connected to the person who is with you on that team. And so the time you actually build that deep character where iron sharpens iron, anybody that is in a marriage relationship knows it is in the time of rest. It is in the time of dating. It's in the intimate spaces where you actually you weave yourself into the other person. And so when the time gets tough, you are sorted, because you can always fall back on that character, on that relationship that's been forged during the time of rest. So this is why rest is such an integral key part of forging ahead, of sustaining the atmosphere that we want, that we are longing for in the Acts community. Okay, the next one, honor your father and your mother. So we spoke about honor. And so honor is the realization of value through intimacy with singular focus. It doesn't help you've got your eye on the fruits and you kind of manipulate the situation just to get the fruits. That is fake intimacy. Nobody wants that. That is abuse. That is being used. Nobody wants. It is about singular focus, really being interested in the party you are spending time with. The blessing that comes from honor, that it may go well with you and that you may have a long life on the earth. So it is not only a long life, but it also goes well with you. And so it's the first commandment with a blessing. But now, what is the opposite? If you dishonor, that means it will not go well with you and you will not have a long life on earth. So just be aware that honor has got a blessing, but dishonor, it's a principle. It is not, we are not kind of labeling people. It is just a principle of Father's kingdom. That's why I'm saying I want to highlight the principles so that you understand how the economy, the mechanics behind everything works, so that it benefits you as a child of God, of the kingdom. Next, you shall not kill. And that just basically translates to, back in the original Hebrew, destroy which Yahweh has ordained. It's a rough translation, but that's what it comes down to. And so if Father has ordained, called something into being, a person, a tree, whatever, if it sustains life and you destroy it, you go against Father, because nothing that exists for the time period, which I'm talking about sustained existence, not short-term existence like some of the things we create in society. What is a good example? Like some of these videos that we get on TikTok. It doesn't have that amount of life in it, and it's not a sustained lifestyle. But some of the things we get from preachers that are videos that come on either TikTok or YouTube or whatever, it's got sustained. It's like a song. It's timeless. And so that is something, that is the principle behind it. When it comes from the kingdom, when it's ordained by Yahweh, it sustains life. It's got a timeless essence to it. And so therefore we should not kill or destroy something Father has ordained. And so we need to be sensitive towards these things. You cannot commit adultery, which means to just break covenant. You shall not steal. And so steal, the root word is deceive. You shall not bear false witness. The root word, once again, is deceive against your neighbor. So this is an important thing. In the tongue lies the power of life and death. We need to really understand this. God is spirit, and his worshippers must worship in spirit and in truth. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. We pray the Lord's Prayer, and we ask for, Father, forgive us our debts and those who are indebted to us. The freedom lies within truth. And so if we come before Father and we speak truth and we speak life according to his ways, it brings freedom. But if we speak nonsense, if we speak lies, if we speak deceit, it does not bring freedom. And so we need to understand that the weight that is on our words, that is on our tongue, is very important. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, some more. So sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. So this scripture actually says, sanctify them by your word. Because if it is by truth and your word is truth, you are sanctified by your word. And it again relates to what I just said. So sanctification, holiness, is set apart by the way we communicate, by the life we bring or the death we bring. And you shall not covet, which just means lust after your neighbor's wife or any of your neighbor's goods. So this comes from a lack or an absence of abundance mindset, which is a source of supply issue. That's the principle behind it. None of our callings are exactly the same, just like none of our fingerprints are the same. And so you are in this realm of the earth, in this dimension that Father called you to make a difference. Your calling is unique to who you are. Therefore, the tools, the resources that surround you are also unique. If I now start lusting after the things which is pretty and which is nice that is in your life, which aligns with your calling, it is absolutely pointless because it will not necessarily benefit my calling. So why am I longing after things which will not benefit my calling? And so this is important to understand that we should stop focusing on the fruits of other people's callings. We should stop focusing on the fruits of other people's mandates. And we should start looking at what our fruits rather should be. Stop wasting our energy, stop wasting our time. That's basically the point. So I just expanded on the principles, which is the 10 Commandments. Allow Father to reveal to you specifically how he wants to convey this to you. But this, the 10 Commandments, is Father saying, listen, this is the boundaries of my heart if you want to have intimacy with me. If you're not willing to have intimacy with me, then it's fine. Then you don't have to honor these principles. But if you want to step into close proximity with me and know my secrets, then you have to honor all of these principles. Otherwise, you are doing me an injustice. You are dishonoring me. You are abusing my sacred space. And so that is what we need to realize, because this is what went wrong in the Acts community. So let's just quickly summarize these principles. Only Yahweh is God. He's the only source of supply, because the fruit will always be a result of the root. So if you want the right fruit, ensure that your root is rooted in Yahweh. Honor the name of God, his character and authority. Honor the day of rest, which is honor a space, a dedicated space for intimacy. Honor your foundations, which is the fathers, the mothers, those who went before us. The words specifically says, if you want if you want to have the gift of a prophet, you should honor a prophet. And so that is a principle. If you want the gift of an evangelist, you should honor an evangelist. If you want the gift of whomever, a teacher, a shepherd, you should honor those people. And so that principle applies always. So you will always receive the gift. That's why it says it's the first principle that has a blessing on it. You will always receive the gift of those you honor, because you are building on their foundation. And so your building will always mimic your, whatever you do will mimic what they have. Therefore, the fruit lies within that. You shall not kill or destroy what Yahweh has ordained. You shall not break covenant. You shall not deceive. You shall not long for other sources of supply, which is lust through lack. And so this whole system comes down to a fathering and a gifting system. It is not about what I can receive. It is not about what I can get. It is how can I as a father come and sustain an atmosphere, take ownership, take responsibility, governing this space and ensuring that everybody gets what they need so that nobody has lack. And so all of us become fathers to one another. All of us see what we can bring into the equation rather than what we can get out of the equation. And that is honor. You know, a father will fight for those he within his family because he believes in them. He sees their potential. Imagine if we can see one another's potential and we get just as invested in everybody's calling and what it is in our own calling. And so we will talk about that principle some more. Okay, so now it is what went wrong. So we read Ananias and Sapphira the previous time, but now from this, what you've just learned, try to see how they dishonored the space that they were allowed into. Because if we realize the environment that was created within this Acts community, this was an absolute cardinal mistake they made, which is exactly what happened. So let's read in Acts chapter 5. Now a man named Ananias, together with his wife Sapphira, also sold a piece of land or property. With his wife's full knowledge, he kept back part of the money for himself, but brought the rest and put it at the apostles' feet. So what happened here? The focus shifted from Yahweh, which was unity, to Mammon, which is independence, because they kept for themselves on the side there. They brought a dishonor because they were not transparent. They were not being accountable. And through that, they lied, which was the deceit. So already there are three principles, because the dishonor was against the fathers, those who helped build this community, which was the disciples. They are the fathers, the teachers, the governors. They were dishonored as well. And we will read now. Then Peter said, Ananias, how is it that Satan has so filled your heart that you have lied to the Holy Spirit and have kept for yourself some of the money you received for that land? Did it not belong to you before it was sold? And after it was sold, wasn't the money at your disposal? What made you think of doing such a thing? You have not lied just against human beings, but to God. So it just shows us there that it was not only against man, it was also against God, because that space was so sacred that they cultivated. When Ananias heard this, he fell down and died. That was what we talked about. Dishonor brings a short life. It is a direct result of what it is said, honor your father and your mother. It was the opposite. And this and great fear seized all who heard what happened. And some young men came forward, wrapped his body and carried him out and buried him. So let's just draw another a picture for where else in the Bible did this happen. If we go read in the Talmud, which is the rabbinic texts, you will see that the high priest either tied a rope around his waist or around his ankle when he entered the Holy of Holies once a year. And so it was a backup for if the high priest came into the Holy of Holies with a presence, with a mindset, with just something of dishonor in Father's presence. And so he would drop dead, and those who were not worthy anyway, because it was only the high priest that was worthy to enter the Holy of Holies, had to then remove the body by pulling on a rope. And so it shows us that the Acts community, the way they just communed with one another, like what we said, Jesus brought a decentralized system about when he died on the cross. He said, you don't have to sacrifice any longer. I'm your sacrifice. You don't have to go worship in a specific temple. You are the temple, and you access Father through me because I'm the gateway. He completely decentralized that system, and it was very disruptive. But it shows us that what Jesus actually did was available to the community, and the disciples hosted that Holy of Holies outside of a building. It was within the community, and it was so holy, it was so honorable, it was so unified that whenever you stepped into that place with dishonor, not honoring the intimacy principles of Father, which we call the 10 Commandments, you would have to bear the cost. And this is what happened. And so Sapphira came in, and the same happened to her. And so this is what we spoke about. So the point I'm trying to make is, we want to live in a community that mimics the Acts community. But do we understand what it takes to sustain, to host that Holy of Holies wherever we go? Do we understand the power? Do we understand the authority? Do we understand the character to not walk a moment off the seat? Think, how many times a day do you say something that doesn't actually equate to the truth? It is an amazing dream to have. And if we are going to go for it, which I'm definitely going for, then we need to step up. Then we need to change the way we do things. And this is what we are talking about. That's why we are talking about the principles, not recipes, because intimacy will never be a recipe. And this is the journey we are taking as a community. And so we are going to grow in this. We know that we are immature. I know that I'm immature, and I need governing principles. In part 1, we spoke about having training wheels on a bicycle so that I learn how to ride with good balance. This is what we are doing now. We are applying those training wheels, and we are going to use crypto to help us do that so that we don't unnecessarily mess up and destroy something we want to sustain. Just because we are ignorant, because we are immature, because we don't know. Okay, so let's get going. So we spoke about the power of life of life and death lies in the tongue. And so we see this first principle actually in Isaac, Jacob, and Esau. So those of you that don't know the story, go read Genesis 27. But just in short, it comes down to your word is final. Because what happened was Esau sold his firstborn right to Jacob for a plate of food. And then later on, Jacob deceived his father Isaac with the help of his mother to also get the firstborn blessing, which was supposed to go to Esau. And so all of this happened. Isaac gave Jacob the blessing. Jacob left, and then Esau entered the scene, and he was ready to receive his blessing. And so let's read. Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" And Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Isaac says to Esau. Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing? My father, bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept loudly. Why was he so absolutely distraught? Because he knew his father could not take back his word. What he had said was final. Life was given, and it was mirrored from the heaven onto the earth. And Isaac knew that, Jacob knew that, Esau knew that. Do we know that today? That when we speak, it is final. How many times do we take things back? We say, no, it can't be that. It needs to be this now. And so that is important that we understand this, that we need to understand the weight of the authority that we've been given as sons of God. And we need to start, that's why it says, put a guard in front of your mouth. So let's read in Matthew 5. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, "You shall not swear falsely, but shall perform your oath to the Lord." But I say to you, do not swear at all, neither by heaven, for it is God's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you swear by the head, because you cannot make one hair white or black. But let your yes be your yes, and your no be your no. For whatever is more than these is from the evil one. So what does that last section mean? It means that whenever you want to justify something which does not belong to you to start off, that is what it says. Heaven doesn't belong to you, not even the hair on your head belongs to you. If you want to justify something, you must know it comes from the evil one, because you've already been given the authority and the power to just say yes and to just say no. But then you have to mean it. As soon as we start justifying things, we bring a word of affirmation to bring something to life which should never see the light of day. So remember that when you bring justifications, it is actually a red light for you to just hold your mouth, hold your tongue, and just check with Father what is going on. And so in Proverbs, we see this. It is a trap for man to dedicate rashly something as holy and only later to reconsider his vows. So it is a trap. It is a snare. It's a problematic opportunity for a man to dedicate something in haste and to declare it as holy. Remember, you are holy because he is holy that lives within you. Whatever you speak comes from that government. And only later to reconsider your vows. Vows comes from intimacy. You are an intimacy technology. So never FOMO into anything. Never say something just to service the atmosphere. When you feel a tug on you, never justify why something needs to be said. Your word, if we can't steward our words, how are we going to steward finances? If we can't steward time and energy, how are we going to steward finances? If we can't steward finances, how are we going to steward the signs and wonders which were prevalent, which were everywhere in the Acts community? And so this is why we need to land those principles. These are the fundamentals. If our foundation is not rooted in these principles, we're always going to struggle. We're always going to ask, why aren't we walking in what they walked in? And so we can no longer be ignorant or blind. So what went wrong? Let's just go over this quickly again. So it's a summary. So transparency, accountability, ownership, or responsibility, which creates intimacy. And so the fruits is intimacy, trust, and unity, which is the holiness atmosphere. So that was not honored. So it was dishonored because the focus was shifted from unity to independence when they went for money. So it was shifted from Yahweh to mammon. It was shifted from intimacy to chasing results or fruits. And so watch yourself when you are chasing after fruits. Watch yourself when you are chasing results. Then it means you've shifted. Your root is shifted. It is no longer in Yahweh. It is after mammon. Because if you long for intimacy with Father, you can always know that your fruits will result in your relationship with Him. The fruits will always be there. So immaturity. FOMO or a lack mentality causes us to jump in without understanding or fully understanding. So investments in relationships, covenants, partnerships, contracts, if you are jumping into something, then it's probably too good to be true, because if a deal is a good deal, it will be there tomorrow. If a deal is a good deal, it will be there in a week's time. Patience, long-suffering, kindness, self-control are the fruits of the Spirit, but it will only be your fruits if your heart is intertwined with Father, if your source is Father. Entitlement, we want the fruit or results instantaneously without relationship. We see that everywhere. We see that in our own lives, and so we need to be cautious of this. And we need to, and we do not understand or practice what it takes to create a holy economy. And those are the fruits of the Spirit. We need to understand that it takes patience. It honestly takes patience to build something that is long-lasting. It is long-suffering because you are being challenged with stuff. It is not easy. It is uncomfortable. And so this comes to ignorance. Ignorance, the root is actually to ignore. It doesn't mean you don't know. It means that the information, the truth is at face value, and you choose to ignore it. And why do we choose to ignore it? Because it is uncomfortable. Why do we not walk into this? Because we don't live a lifestyle of teachability, because we are not walking in humility. And that is what worship is about. The Hebrew word for worship is shachar, which means to be prostrate, to be basically on your face in front of Father. That is as humble as you can be. If you get to that place, you also recognize the glory of Father, which then puts you in a position of honor, which puts you in a position to receive the gift. And so humility is the key to bring the fruits that we are longing for into our lives. And so it is inconvenient to change. We all know that, but nothing in life grows without a little bit of discomfort. Okay, the Acts community reality. It is an atmosphere of great power, which requires great responsibility and produces great results. And so it is a model of the marriage. And so if you struggle with your marriage, that's the first place where you can test this, where you can grow this. You will always, like what we said, if you can't build perpetually, you will never be able to provide from your abundance. You need to also mimic your abundance as the abundance is in the heavens, because you are a house, a storehouse of Father. He presides in you. And so if you are not finding abundance in your own life, in your own relationships, how are you going to help a community? Just ask that question. You know how difficult it is to change your own life. How are you going to help somebody else change their life? So start at home, become the solution. Miracles, a holy atmosphere, life and death lies within these principles of intimacy. This atmosphere is only sustained through constant application of the heavenly principles fueled by intimacy. So this is the foundation. Consistency and applying it consistently is what brings about the life of heaven on earth. This is not a religion or a recipe. It is consistent intimacy, and you will always be the right person at the right time, in the right position to serve Father's kingdom. It is only accessed by total surrender, not through sacrificial submission. This is a very, very important understanding that needs to come to our beings. I'm talking about soul and body. For too long have we strived and worked through strive, the sweat of our brow, to bring about change. That is sacrificial submission. What happens then? You force some part of your being to submit to something which it doesn't want to. And what does it say? Kingdoms that are divided does not stand. Somebody who is in two minds are thrown every which way like the waves when the wind blows it. And so we need to understand that we need to go into surrender. So what is surrender? You gain a position where you go into rest. No part of your being is striving or forcing or feeling abused to stay in that place. It might be uncomfortable because being naked, being intimate is uncomfortable because you are allowing the Father to see every part of your being. But it is easy in the way that it's not work. You will feel rested even though you are changing the world, even though your being is being changed. And so it is about shifting from that place where you are breaking yourself into changing versus where you are resting your being into changing. And so all of these principles we are talking about tonight, we can do a single chat about because it is infinitely deep. Rest is probably the most important one of them all, which is what we call surrender. And so if you do not understand rest, you will not understand intimacy because it takes time to be intimate. If you never rest, you will never create a space for intimacy. If you are never intimate, you will never understand honor. If you never understand honor, you will never understand the gifts that are there and how to access relationship, and you will never understand holiness. And so everything builds from there. And so we need to foundationally land these principles so that we can sustain what we are longing for. Remember, we are asking the question, how do we recreate what the Acts community created that mimics the Holy of Holies? So surrender of any other source of supply other than Yahweh. Surrender of independence, your singular identity for the revealing of unity. Surrender your experiences, your knowledge, which limits you to which limits your vision and perspective to see what Yahweh wants to establish. We really need to give up everything that we worked for so that we can access the abundance of the kingdom through rest. Where do we see this whole concept just absolutely summarized beautifully? Jesus was asked, what do we need to pray? And he brought about the Lord's Prayer. Then Jesus was asked, what is the greatest law? And this is the other thing we need to focus on. And this is what we read here in Matthew 22. Teacher, which commandment is the greatest in the law? Jesus declared, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. So it is every part of your being. There is a unity. Nothing is out of sync. It is singular focus unity. Every part is focused on the same goal, is going for the same goal. This is the first and greatest commandment. Now, the crazy part is the next part. It says, and the second is like it. It is likened unto the first. Why is this? Let's just read quickly before I make that point. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and all the prophets hang on these two commandments. Everything that was ever written principally, governmentally, hinges on these two principles. So the first is the greatest, which is you must love God with every part of your being. And then the second part of it, which is just like it, it says, love your neighbor as yourself. Why? Why do you need to love yourself? Because Father lives within you. You are holy as he is holy. If you can't love yourself, how are you going to love God who you can't see? If you don't love yourself, how are you going to love your neighbor who you can see? And so we need to practice loving ourselves, loving our neighbors, so that we can honor Father in the same level, because you are his vessel. He lives within you. If you don't love yourself, you dishonor Father, actually. And so this whole couple of verses there summarizes everything we spoke about now. And so if we can understand that and land just this, you don't have to know anything else that was ever mentioned in the scriptures. Okay, so why are finances the focus? Every time we read about something, parables, when we read about what happened to Sapphira and Ananias, it all revolves around finance. So why is this the focal point? Going on a date requires what? Some money. Because if you don't go with any money, what type of date are you going to have? It might not be such an amazing opportunity. So it comes down to foundationally, you require time and energy. Because if you lack energy in the date and you don't have a sparkle in your eye, people are not going to swipe you. How does that work? I'm not an online dating personality. I think you swipe right? Okay, that's probably a bad joke, but so it's going on a date, and it requires time and energy. It requires devoted focus. You need to be really present there. Otherwise, you're not going to get a second date. And so money is all about intimacy. Intimacy is all about money. And so intimacy consists of being transparent, accountability, responsibility, trust, and unity. And this is what we saw within the Acts community. That is a holy space. If going on a date requires time and energy, what is the fundamentals of money? It is time and energy. It is the realm of intimacy. And so if we look at the two parts that Father created, time and energy separately, it kind of marriages, it goes into a covenant to produce what we call money. And so there is something very special there that we need to learn. When do we trade? So the question now is, or transact, that is another way to put it. If the power of life and death lies within the tongue, it is every time we speak something, every time we transact, every time we make a decision. So when do we trade? Or another question could be, when don't we transact? And so the answer to the last is never. We always transact because we always use time and energy. When you sit and meditate, what are you doing? You are spending time and energy. Are you meditating on something that is according to Father's decrees? What Father ordains? Is it bringing life? Is it bringing death? And so, see, I set before you today life and prosperity, death and destruction. For I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to him, and to keep his commandments, decrees, and laws. Then you will live and increase, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land you are entering to possess. That is what happened in the Acts community, exactly word for word. They honored Father's decrees, his commandments, his laws, and they just increased. And the Lord was with them. But they understood that before them is set the opportunity to choose life and prosperity or death and destruction. Now, let's just quickly branch out on that topic just for a short time. Life can be a good thing, but life can also be a bad thing. Death can be a good thing, and death can also be a bad thing. So if, for instance, I have the capacity to bring death or destruction to all the plastic pollution in the world, would that be a good thing? I would think that would be an amazing thing if I could, in an instant, say, all the plastic pollution be gone. And it just disintegrates and goes back to its fundamental elements, which it was created from, and it just has got no influence on the earth. that would be a good way to steward death. And so we need to understand that there are opportunities where Father is going to prompt you to speak death to something, but then you need to have the character to sustain that authority. But then you need to be sure. And there are going to be opportunities where Father is going to tell you to bring life to something. But then we need to be in partnership with him to be according to his decrees, his laws, his commandments. Okay, next topic that is important for us, because if we do not understand equality, if we do not understand the differences between everybody being unique, we are going to miss the mark in the Acts community. So we've got a skewed or incomplete understanding of equality mostly. If we look at that picture on the left, that is what most of us have seen equality and equity being presented as. But it is not a complete representation always, or our understanding is not always complete. And what I'm going to tell you is not 100% complete yet, but it just leans you into a position where you can go and dig into with Father a bit more. Let Holy Spirit show you a bit more. So equality or equity is not to bring everybody to the same level. So we see on the picture on the right, everybody's on the same level now. So I'm kind of saying that's not the full revelation yet. It will be a waste of resources if we bring everybody to the same level. So that is a harsh statement from me, but listen to what I want to say. And so I'm not trying to unnecessarily offend. If we take a doctor and a judge and we give them exactly the same schooling and they go through the same school, they get the same resources, we could say more or less it could be fair because they study the same amount of time. They both have the opportunity to bring life and death in society. They are in more or less different spheres of life, but they've got equal opportunity and their authority is more or less equal. But if we compare them to a coding specialist or a farmer who just studies for 3 years versus 7 years, you would think it's not the same amount of financial resources that back them. And the coding specialist needs high-level computer equipment where a farmer would do nothing with that computer equipment. And so if we just give everybody exactly the same resources, exactly the same schooling system, we are wasting their time. And that is what the Acts community got right. It said they gave to everybody that nobody had need. So if we can identify today in one another's lives what they are called to do, and we can surround one another with brotherly love, loving one another like we love ourselves, and I have surplus resources, and I see some of you need those specific resources, I can allocate it to you to help you reach your full potential. And that would be an amazing stewarding of resources, because not only am I partnering with your calling, with your blueprint, with your dream, because I need to have a conversation to know this, but I'm also partnering with you as maybe as a father or a steward, and I start doing things which you struggle with, which I can teach you in, maybe administrative, maybe taxes, maybe something like that. And so different callings, different tools, unique resources, and equipping. And then it becomes beautiful. Then it's not about us having exactly the same resources and opportunity, because Father's community is not about linear amounts. It's not about saying everybody got the same amount, because Father's economy runs on ratios, percentages. We see that in tithing. We see that in the scripture where the widow came with her 2 pennies, and it was more than what anybody else gave in the temple as a gift, as a tithe. Because Father's kingdom looks at percentages, at ratios, not about the amounts that we bring. And so we need to shift our mindset completely from how we used to measure things. Our measuring stick needs to change completely. So we are not called to be equal in position or authority, but we are called to be equal in love, which is the opportunity to reach our unique, mature potential or calling. So it's not about having the same opportunities, it's having the same amount of love extended to everybody. And this is what the Acts community landed in principle, and which was so amazing. Right. So finances equals currency or money or wealth. So what is money or finances? what is this? What does this definition mean to you? What is your understanding of what I'm saying? What is money or finances? Just think about it for a minute. Are they all the same? Aren't they the same? That we've so interchangeably just use all of these terms for the same thing, but we don't understand the government behind it. And so we need to approach this question from a governmental perspective. And so I'm just going to run through this so that we understand. It is not something to really dig too deep into. It is just something to understand. So because money is time and energy, it equals intimacy, it equals government. Money will always be all of those things. So currency, which we all use, all of our countries have different currencies. Your capacity or ability to influence with cash, your voice, your vote. It is an extension of your words. So we speak even different languages. So we've got different currencies. So it is a linguistic thing. It is your ability to influence, to vote in your community. And so it comes down to transactions. Your words, yes, no, life and death transactions. Money, what we normally just claim for everything, is your governmental measure or your weight through business. So it is your measure of authority. Those who have businesses in the communities, they have authority. They have more to offer. They've got a bigger weight. They've got more influence in the area, and that is what we call trading floors. So first you've got your transactions, and then there are people who own trading floors where they can decide how it is traded. And then we've got wealth. And so we all know about you need to leave an inheritance for your children's children. A good man, a good father leaves that wealth. And so your power to sustain or establish government through business and network. So it's not only businesses, it's your network as well. So it's all the weight, the surplus weight behind your business. So it is your storehouse. It's the depth of your authority and power. So quickly, currency is transactions, money is trading floors, and your wealth is the storehouse which sits behind your trading floor. And so every time we talk, we need to understand that these are different things. Okay, living by the principles of the Acts community. So it's just a summary again. I'm doing as many summaries as possible because repetition is the mother of all learning. Otherwise, this thing just gets out of hand. So if I repeat myself and you've got it, it's for other people's sake and for my own sake, because I still learn. Okay, so let's get into it. How will we govern this environment? Living by the principles of Yahweh. It is not a recipe, but it's a living, intimate governmental principle. There will always be different levels in any family, in any economy, in any government. And so just in families, fathers and mothers have a different level of authority than young adults, than teenagers, than children, than babies. And with that comes different levels of character. Babies can't handle the same things fathers and mothers do. Babies cry at every instance they get an opportunity because they're always confused, afraid, or overwhelmed. You don't see that with older siblings. Therefore, different levels of ability, capacity, and responsibility to govern. Therefore, good stewardship establishes authority and position to govern. So what are we saying? As we mature, we get higher levels of authority. If you steward well, you get given more, like the parable says. And so it is not complicated. We should never get entitled. We should just reposition ourselves to grow in character so that we can steward more. That's all. So every time we feel like somebody else is taking my position, somebody's getting something I should have gotten, you should ask yourself, just remember that. Then the maturity of character and identity determines the level of authority. And so some of the authority is automatic and some of it is ordained. So let's look at examples of that. The financial success brings about automatic authority. If somebody has a very expensive suit or car, immediately it kind of just creates a situation where you recognize the authority automatically. if somebody has been successful through business, they work their way up there. And by doing that,
Francois?
Yes.
Francois?
Yes.
I think you're going to have to repeat those last two sentences, maybe. I think your internet might be dropping, so we're kind of struggling to hear you.
Okay, so are we going from the maturity of character and identity?
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay, so we are asking how did the Acts community live? How did they sustain that? And so we need to understand that there are different levels of authority, and we should never be entitled. And so now we are looking at the different types of authority which we find in life. And so the maturity of character and identity determines the level of authority. And so character and identity comes through you doing business, you being active in society. And so some of the authority is automatic, and some of it is ordained. You are chosen or elected into that position. And so financial success brings about automatic authority, and it is automatically recognized in people who have nice cars, nice houses, because you just know to sustain that level of authority, you need to have something that backs it. And normally a lot of finances also require good stewardship, which is good character. And so that's how in finances it's easy to see. But with ordained authority, it's easy to see the authority of a president, because we know a whole nation elected that person into office, or most of the nation. Let's be more accurate. And so it is a situation where people decide who is in a position of authority. And sometimes it is not people with good character, and you could see that corrupting. And so this is just the two things we need to recognize, that if we are going to be stewards, and if we are going to feel entitled, we need to know that it's either finances that will put you in a position of authority, or it will be good relationships in the community, which will get you elected into a position of authority, where they say, we trust you with our resources. And so you've also proven yourself. And so if you want to step into a place where you govern Father's holy atmosphere, you need to understand that finances and relationships are both necessary for us to walk in that. Okay, how can crypto help? Now we basically go full circle. So crypto plays a very small but very kind of important part, because the problems we had with the Acts community can be solved through crypto. So crypto is a governmental tool for finances and contractual systems. And that was the problems what we had. We had people deceiving through finances and lying. And so how does crypto solve the problems of the Acts community? We've got technologies that are written into the blockchain, like we explained in part 1. And so you don't have to understand crypto, you don't have to understand blockchain. All you need to understand is that within the code, they write smart contracts. And within that contracts, your yes is always your yes, your no is always your no. It can never be changed again. Your accountability and responsibility, therefore, is guaranteed, because whatever the contract states, that will always be honored, regardless of the level of character that people have. And so it is 100% transparent, which therefore creates trust. When people say that you cannot trace, for instance, Bitcoin, which is the most renowned crypto out there, it is not 100% true, because you can go and view every transaction that was ever made. The only problem is you need to connect an identity to that transaction. And once you've done that, you always know what that person has done. And so that's the only part that kind of brings about some form of anonymity, but it's also limited, because the way society is functioning, it is becoming more obvious who owns what. And so it is actually a very transparent, accountable process. And so governed by the community through the crypto code. So when we decide, whatever our constitution is, whatever our laws, our commandments are, that gets written into the code. And so the principles which is in the code is therefore the trading platform, where we will trade on will always honor the codes of conduct. And so if we create a crypto trading platform and everybody that comes on there needs to honor that codes, because their transactions will never go through if they do not abide by those laws. And so some practical examples of this is whether you can use these smart contracts to limit authority. You can allow lending even at 0%. You can prevent scams. You can allow for fair trade protocols, creating a voting system. For instance, we can use crypto to make voting 100% accurate, and you can make it in such a way that you vote from your smart device, from your home. You never ever have to go anywhere. And that is amazing because it brings about a decentralized freedom. It allows for the truth to always be the truth. And so limited work required by members to maintain this environment, because crypto just does all the admin, or almost 100% of the admin for you. And this is what makes this tool so amazing, because it removes dishonor, it removes deceit, it removes lies, it removes every scheme that can be out there. So it limits basically immaturity. And so to sum it up, crypto solves the problems of immaturity experienced in the acts community and sustains a healthy atmosphere, limiting death and destruction. It's as simple as that. Okay, what does it look like in reality? So now, are you a business owner? Are you a crypto enthusiast? Let's talk a little bit more practical. And so there are an absolute endless amount of applications for this technology, and it will definitely grow more as the technology evolves. But just for now, say you are a business owner or you are somebody that pays people. There's more than one, but a specific app I'm just going to use as a reference is 6.50. And what they do is they have 0 monthly fees. So it means if you've got a phone, you download the app and you never pay a single monthly fee for it. There are no transaction fees for the merchants or retailers on their system, and there are no transaction fees if I transact between me and another person who's got the app. So it means that all the funds stay within the system. So if I pay somebody that works for me and they get a small salary, it means that more money can work for them, because if they get their money from me and they go to the shop, and the shop is one of the merchants, they don't pay to shop at that merchant either. And so if they get $100 or 100 Rand, they can make that full 100 work for them. And it allows them to build momentum to get out of poverty, because if you've got monthly banking fees, if you've got a bunch of transaction fees, it means more of your salary is eaten up by the system and you can't use it. And that's why most people can't save, because they don't have enough cash flow to actually save. And the nice thing is these applications, it connects to your bank account. So you can use a crypto payment system in parallel with your existing payment system at no extra cost. And that is pretty awesome. It's actually cheaper than Zapper, for instance. And Zapper is not too bad, but it shows you what is practically possible with just these applications. Digital arts, or NFT, is a term that's been thrown around a lot. If you don't know the word NFTs, that is 100% okay. You don't have to understand it. It is just about the space where digital art has been sold in the past, specifically graphic design, have been absolutely abused. People have used people's graphic designs for their own, and they can't even protect it in court. So what does crypto do? They take your art, your poetry, your music, whatever you can digitize, and it puts automatic royalties on it. So you decide what the royalties on it is, and whenever in the future that thing is sold or rented out, whatever, those funds come back to you regardless of where in the world that transaction takes place. So you, the creator of this technology, always benefits from it. So you are never abused in the system. It is intellectual property protection, which you can write into the smart contract. There are copyright infringement protection embedded into your art. And so you can even go fight it in court because there is no way they can prove it otherwise. Because if you created that and you put that on the system with your name, with your algorithm, your coding connected to it, it will stand in court with ease. Lending, creating 0% lending opportunities. So what they are doing now is they are creating an ecosystem where they allow specifically start-up businesses like small to medium enterprises. They're allowing them to get either investment from you as an investor, or they can borrow from the community bank, which normally would have been a very high risk investment. But now, because of crypto, they create an economy with merchants, with retailers, where they say you can go buy and sell at those retailers, which means the money flow is tracked, it is governed, it's protected from leaving the system, and then the money eventually returns back to the bank over a period of maybe 10 years. Because that is the way the code is written. So even though you are borrowing or lending at 0%, the money will always come back, because the protocol that is within the algorithmic system will always return the money to the bank if there is surplus within the system. And so that is a topic that we can go into depth in, but that is just a possibility. And so it becomes really that kingdom heart where we have a feeling that, man, I wish I could help these people and give them money at 0% interest. But it doesn't make sense financially. It starts making sense. Property, creating opportunity to invest in property at a fraction of the cost. So it means that you can now get shares in a property and sell it at a drop of a dime, because it now becomes liquid, because all the procedures, all the contracts, the paperwork will be integrated into this technology. So it basically cuts out the deeds office, it cuts out the real estate agent, it cuts out the middleman in essence. And so it makes property liquid. Even if you sell and buy a full property, you can do it within minutes. And so it creates a system where you can go check who does the property belong to? Is the property sold? Where is it in the system? And so even if the governmental system collapses, like what we had with lockdown, where deeds offices were closed, you can then, through this technology, still continue, and you don't get stuck where you need to sell your house to actually move, and you don't have the money because the transaction can go through. And so it brings a liquidity solution to things that used to be very, very difficult to move. And then secure storage of personal data like medical records, only accessible to those who authorize it, or who you authorize to see it. So say, for instance, you collapse and you don't have any identification on you. They take you to hospital and you use this particular crypto application. And all they need to do is they scan your fingerprint. And when they scan your fingerprint, your information comes up, your next of kin and your doctor. And so they can call either your next of kin or your doctor, and then they can give the hospital the code to unlock your medical records. And then they can see how to treat you, what have you been in for before, and they only see what is necessary to keep you in a healthy state. They don't see all the rest of your records, which belongs to your doctor. And this way, you can lose your identification even, and you can always know who you are. And it's like your fingerprint. Wherever it travels, it basically helps you. And so it's a very helpful tool and to lighten the load of administration. And so these are just examples of showing us that in a society of immaturity, where people want to steal your identification, or where you are just ignorant because you don't know the law, it helps you protect you against you or against thieves. Okay, this is almost the end. We are doing very well. How do we become a healthy, sustainable Acts community? So this is the summary. So it's living by the principles of the Acts community, which is the 10 commandments. So let's just summarize again. Remember this scripture. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All of the laws of the prophets are hanging on these 2 commandments, which is the 10 commandments, which is a fathering and gifting system. Governing these principles using a system which does not change, which is crypto, to prevent instances of dishonor, immaturity, and ignorance, to bring life and prevent destruction. Therefore, creating a sustainable environment where transparency, accountability, ownership, or responsibility is guaranteed, which creates intimacy, trust, and unity, and an equal opportunity for all of us to reach our full potential. This is what this is about. And so this is what we do. This is what Who I Am does. It is a collective of people who's got the same vision, the same dream. I am the founder of Who I Am, but I'm not the owner of Who I Am. It belongs to the community. It belongs to people who have got the Acts community heart in mind. And I've been pursuing the Acts community for most of my existence because I grew up in a family who's been pursuing it. And so I know what it takes. I've carried the cost, and we've had to stop certain movements, certain systems, certain communities, because it was getting out of hand, because it was going to destroy rather than bring good. And it was tough to kind of put to sleep something that you've built a long time to see come to fruition. But we've learned a lot, and Father's taught us a lot. And so we extend opportunity for anybody that wants to learn how to do this. And so we use crypto to help people govern well, but we also use crypto to teach people the fundamentals of finances, of emotional and body spirit maturity, so that you can steward your finances well in basically pressurized situations. Anybody that's ever worked with money on exchange knows it kind of stresses you out a bit. So we learn how to stay in rest while governing well. And so if you want to get in on crypto, trading and investing, we do weekly course. We've got an educational course. If you haven't found the link, we will post it with the next video on YouTube, and you can find it in the description. But we also do consultation by bookings. So because you are unique, your situation is unique, we bring you the tools, the principles that will help you become what you want to do. And so our focus areas is what we've discussed on the previous chat as well, but it is really about becoming just as earthly effective as what the Spirit is. And it is trading from a place of rest. It is healthy relationships with money. It is bringing your dreams, your uniqueness into a reality. And that's the Acts community way. And so it's building community for the benefit of the generations to come. Because we believe of building an inheritance, but we believe building systems, infrastructure, which also leaves an inheritance. I want to build electricity, water, sanitation, communications in such a way, transport, that the next generation does not have to worry about how do they get to school, how do they study for school, regardless of your level of income, that everybody gets the same opportunity, the same love to then access the uniqueness. And so we cannot do this alone. I can't do this alone. And that's why Marie and I and Kim and some of the other people who are on here have partnered already, some in more measures than other. But if you want to get involved, please get in touch with us. Please connect with us. You can, even if this is just absolute Greek or French or German or whatever language you don't understand at the moment, connect with us on Facebook, because we will update you and keep you updated with what is relevant to community growth. We are working on projects now. And so along the line, if you get interested or you've got the need, then you know what is available. So we're not going to bombard you with nonsense. I value community too much to bring about just infomercials and all of that. I'm not going to sell you a bunch of stuff. That's not how we work. We want to add value. And so that's what Who I Am does locally in South Africa, but we've partnered with Upper Room Capital Development. They are in the United States, and they provide the same service. So if you want to speak more American, then connect with them. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on Instagram. They've got a podcast going, which is awesome. And so connect with the community. We want to educate you guys as best as we possibly can to equip you for the dream that you have. Okay, I want to thank you guys for sitting through this stake session with me. It was a meaty one. It is absolute privilege to be able to have an ear that listens to your voice. So I honor you guys. I thank you that you are honoring me in this, and that we can build this together. And I know that all of you've got the same dream. So that is my swan song for part 2. We're probably going to have many other parts that come from this. But now is your opportunity to ask any questions. And if you don't have any questions now, we've got Facebook, we've got WhatsApp, we've got the email. You can connect with us there whenever you listen to this recording as well. Awesome.
Thank you, Francois. Well, so now if you have some questions, please use the reaction button there at the bottom and just raise your hand, or type your questions in the chat, and then we can just read them out. Francois, but I think as I was listening to you, I realized that, for me anyway, community building is something that it's always been in my heart. It's always something, and I think that's a big way why we connected. But something that we might not get or might not understand, especially about cryptocurrency, is that this is, like you said right in the beginning, it's not a quick fix. It's not a get rich quickly scam or something like that, but that this is actually something that we need to get ourselves positioned in for the long term. And that this is actually something that we need to start doing for generations to come. I might not even see the fruit necessarily of what I'm doing and getting ready, but it is actually building a foundation, building and creating a new community, or kind of, I don't want to say build, but it's almost healing the community back to what you just talked about, and just getting back to that place where we step into, but this was actually God's heart. But from where we are at the moment, in terms of what the financial systems of the world look like, and getting back to that place where it's not about us, and where it's not about getting rich necessarily for us, to get to a place where communities have an understanding of what money is, and wealth is actually for the generations to come. It's not going to be overnight. Or am I understanding this process wrong?
The amazing thing is that there is a lot of money out there, a lot of money. And so there are people who have an absolute heart of giving. They understand giving. That's how they got so wealthy. That's how they got so rich. And so if we are, as a community, going to build a sustainable environment with good fundamentals, good principles, and good governance, the money will flow towards that. That is just the way money works. It will always work like that. And so if we educate ourselves, if we partner well together, we create a situation where we will get the funds which can change a nation in a day. But then we have to show ourselves worthy, because if you are a good steward, you will be given more to steward. And so we, as a community, unfortunately, have not been stewarding money well, as Christians. We claim a lot of things to be a Christian, but we've not shown ourselves worthy. And that's just the basic principle of the kingdom and of finances. And so some of it will take long, because infrastructure takes long to build, but money does not necessarily take that long to flow to a good cause. And especially in the crypto community, it is amazing how giving these people are across the world. We've seen these examples in Canada, in Russia, in Ukraine, even in Tonga with that massive explosion of the volcano. And so individuals have been funding these schemes. And even if you go look on Binance, on the charity page, you will see how much people have given to charity. Millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Privateers. It's not governments that are going to change the world. It is us. It is us becoming a community, united people, united nation across the world. And your money is your vote. Your money is your ability to influence. And so this is what we need to do. But we need to build trading floors and storehouses so that when the money comes, it has got someplace to go. Otherwise, the water just runs by you and you just get a bucket full, and it's not an inheritance. So that's a long-winded answer, but it's yes and no.
Okay, sorry, I don't see any other questions, so I'm just going to continue. So I'm sitting here, I'm trading a little bit on an exchange. Okay, so, the idea is to hopefully make a little bit somewhere. But how does me trading on an exchange actually change my community? And how do I get from me just trading and making a little bit of money? How do I get that to actually have an effect on a community? What do I have to do to have to help change the system that we're talking about? What does that look like in a practical way?
So it comes back to when I said it is, how are you going to help anybody else if you can't help yourself? And so what trading does, and I normally tell people $50 is all you require to basically do a mini business course or MBA. And you can use trading to do that, because if you trade with that little money, you've got skin in the game. It changes the way you feel, you think, you do, and very quickly you realize how emotional you are, how much FOMO comes up, and all of that. Even if you are just invested, you don't have to be a day trader or an active trader. You can just be invested. You will quickly learn how you think about money, where your source of supply is, how poor or how good your strategies are, what you understand about taxes, how good your admin is, all of those things, your emotional admin, your physical, the financial admin, all of that plays a part into you becoming a good steward, becoming a mature individual. Because if you can function under pressure, it means you are in rest. It means you access good quality thoughts, you access good quality strategies in times of pressure. And so when you've landed that within yourself, you can teach that to those directly around you. You can even take that back to your workplace, and you can teach them how to do proper administrative management, because maybe they don't know how to administrate well. Maybe they don't know what taxes actually, how you can save and be a good tax planner. Maybe they don't know a lot of what you are teaching them. And so then you make your business or the place of work, you start honoring that place, you start sowing back into that place in the abundance that you've already cultivated in just trading a little bit of money or investing. And then it grows from there. And so because you've stewarded that well, you get a promotion at your work. Now you've got a position of authority because you brought some character into the game, character that you forged at home, investing. And then you are very equipped, but in a higher place of authority to change your workplace. Your workplace now, you start stewarding those trading floors that we spoke about. It's more weighty, it's got more leverage in the community. And now you start changing your community in a higher level. And so it just continuously cascades, upgrades from there. And so it is about stewarding the small things well, because everything we learn in the small things just gets duplicated on a larger scale in the community. And so that's why we do trading and investing, because it teaches you all the principles in a very practical way, and it tests you, because you are going to be tested. And if you are found worthy, you get upgraded, you get given more to steward. If you're not, it is not a failure, it's just an opportunity to learn. And so we normally think that the master called his servant a bad servant, that he was focused on him as a person. If you go look at the original Greek root of that, it is not the person's character. Because if we go look at the 5, 2, and 1 talents parable, it is about everybody got the same opportunity. They grew up under the same tutorship of the master. They grew up in the same environment, in the same house. So they had all the same opportunity to learn. Therefore, he challenged, he judged the choices he made, because the master knew what he was given, the guy with 1 talent. And so because he stewarded what he was given poorly, not only in physical money, but also in educational and supportive resources, he was said, your choices were bad. And so we read that as the master saying that the guy was just a bad person. That is not what it says. The choices you made were bad, and that gives us opportunity to start again. And so if we make mistakes, it's always a learning opportunity. That's the one thing we need to see, because if we start with a mindset like that, we are always looking for solutions, and we are not trying to look for problems. Remember, what the eye hooks into multiplies. What we speak multiplies. And so if we can shift that mindset in spirit, soul, and body, you become an absolute life-giving kingdom son of God, always.
It is such a profound spiritual truth in there, and I think if we start to see the bigger picture, and I'm slowly but surely starting to get it, because it's the inner work that needs to start. It's us that needs to have the revelation and the transformation in ourselves in order to grasp this and have an understanding of what this is. And it's when we understand on the inside what's happening that our external world can respond to that, and that we can actually have an influence on the external world. So it's not the other way around. Yeah, wow. Anyway, I think that penny just dropped for me. Anyway, I can talk for hours. Any other questions?
Kim, if there's anything you want to add, maybe just let us know also.
Hi, Kim. Welcome from Texas, I think you said.
Kansas.
Kansas. Yeah, sorry. Can't hear you though. No.
Okay. Any technical questions, even if you guys want to ask technical questions, like how do we use this in business, all of that. That's also an option.
No questions.
Okay. Well, like we said, if you guys have any questions that come up when you listen to the recording, please connect with us. We are building community. So awesome.
Yes.
Now, Marie, thank you for doing all the administrative work. And thank you everybody for tuning in and carrying this vision with us. It's a masterpiece of individual callings that come together in a united format. It's the only way this thing is going to work. And so if we can celebrate one another like we celebrate ourselves, therefore you need to kind of learn to love yourself, go date yourself a little bit, spend some quality time with yourself, and then start loving the people around you in a way that is just life-giving. Then this thing is going to be awesome.
Yes. Thank you, Francois. I just want to honor you for your time and your effort that you've put into this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I don't think we understand, well, I don't understand it probably yet, the tremendous weight of the revelation that you are bringing to the table. I am learning from you, and it's such an honor. So thank you for that. It is such an honor. And I do just want to put out there is we are going to continue to do these conversations. How often they're going to be, we don't know. We are really just going with the flow of the spirit. But as you can see, Francois has a lot of revelation and understanding about this, and I want to tap from his knowledge as much as possible. And yeah, so please continue the journey with us. Yeah, and if you don't have any other questions, I think we're going to say God bless and good night.
Yeah, awesome. All right, bye guys. See you in the next one.
Okay. Yeah, good night. Goodbye.